2020's The Invisible Man. This time around, the Invisible Man is a crazed, obsessed, abusive husband who happens to be a scientist and creates an invisible suit made up of thousands of tiny cameras. No different than this. But the main focus in this film is more from the woman's perspective, and we spend very little time with Adrian, who is the Invisible Man. The bulk of the time is spent with Cecilia, his wife or girlfriend, as we open up with the film and she's trying to escape. And during this escape, she ends up setting off alarms and he chases her to the car where her sister is picking her up. They drive off, she goes and stays at a friend's house, and then the torture begins. Adrian ends up finding out where she's staying and in his invisible suit starts toying with her, manipulating her and playing mind games. And you can only imagine what that would do to a person if that were to happen. So all his little deeds start off innocent, where he's just hanging around her, giving her the vibes of he's standing there. At one point, he's making noises throughout the house and then opens the front door. And it's cold this night. She walks out, you can see her breath. He walks out next to her and you can see his breath. This movie is the perfect sci-fi psycho thriller because the director knew how to place the camera, how to make it feel like he was in the room. And even if you assumed he was or was not in the room, the camera would move with him as if it's following someone. So there was a lot of tension and atmosphere built up in this movie, and it all came together well. I mean, this is a slow-paced movie. It's nothing of the action genre. It's nothing like Memoirs of the Invisible Man or Hollow Man. It's more of the slow-paced, suspenseful mystery psycho thriller. And it feels like the progression of where Hollow Man was going. If you haven't watched our review, link in the description. So as we're following Cecilia and these weird things are happening around her, you can only imagine how hard it is for someone to be in a situation where nobody's believing you when all these weird things are happening. So no one in the beginning or even throughout the film really believes him until they have an actual encounter with him. But usually an encounter with him is deadly. So we get to see a natural story progression and character reaction of that kind of situation. There's one part where the Invisible Man hits the daughter of the guy that she's staying with and they assume that it's her. He leaves, takes her to a safe location and leaves Cecile there. Cecile is like, hey, I'm tired of this manipulation you doing. I'm tired of all this. So this is a turning point of where she's starting to fight. So she's like throwing coffee grounds all over the place to make sure he can't come near her. Then she gets the idea to call his phone because earlier in the first act of the movie, it was believed that he offed himself. So she has this idea to call his phone, and it just so happened the phone rings and it's in the attic. She goes in the attic, finds the phone, finds the stuff that he's been moving and taking from her. And as she's ready to leave, she can hear the ladder that she climbed up on creaking and feel that he's in her face. So she splashes paint on him and he runs, cleans it off, and they have a little fight in the house. They fight, they tussle for a little bit, and she ends up escaping. So now she's on a mission to uncover everything and get proof to show everybody. And at this point, she's involving her sister, but he's manipulated her too by sending email from Cecile's computer, which results in Cecile feeling more isolated because the person she's staying with doesn't want her there. Now her sister doesn't want anything to do with her, and she makes one last plea to her sister. They end up meeting at this restaurant. Now this is where I kind of have an issue with the story because what follows only makes a little bit of sense. It makes sense for the story, but it doesn't make sense in how everyone is as far as law enforcement and people are treating this incident. So they're at the restaurant, they're having a conversation. Cecile decides to tell her that she found a secondary suit that Adrian is wearing. And once she tells her this, mind you, we're in a crowded restaurant, you can see a knife being picked up and he takes out her sister. Cecile, of course, shocked by this, she's just in awe, and the knife is in her hand now and it looks like she did it. But here's the one issue I have with that scene. She ends up being taken into custody and booked for murder. But the issue I have with that is the fact that earlier in the movie, they had a ring camera or a security camera of a house where she ran by and it looked like she was running from nothing. They presented that in their findings to kind of, convict her. But you mean to tell me there were no cameras whatsoever inside that restaurant, or any eyewitnesses that say, hey, I saw that knife float and she never moved? But also on the flip side of that, I can understand how someone would naturally refrain from saying that they saw a levitating knife. You would sound crazy in a normal world, because this is not a world that's populated with supernatural beings and stuff like that. This is a grounded reality. But that's one bit of an issue that I have with the movie. But we move on from there. She goes on to formulating a plan to where she catches him in a trap and damages the suit to where people can somewhat see him. And at this point, it becomes like a straight up horror movie in the hospital scene where she's trying to escape. And I won't spoil the ending, but it's wrapped up pretty nicely. This movie made $134 million or something like that off of a $7 million budget. And I was eagerly waiting for a sequel. Why it didn't happen, I still don't know to this day. But for the most part, this film was well paced. There could have been a little bit of tightening up, but again, understanding that this is a suspense thriller, psychological drama, I can understand why the pacing was a bit slow at times. But everybody does a great job acting. Visual effects was solid, and I'd have to give this a good 4 out of 5 stars. So let me know in the comments, have you seen this movie? Will you watch this movie? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.